At my sister's baby shower she laughed. Still single, sweetheart. Mom added Becky's having her first baby. I stayed quiet. Then a man with a child said I'm Carole's husband. The whole room froze. Hey Reddit. My name is Carole and I've never enjoyed baby showers. It's not the pastel decorations or the weirdly competitive diaper games that bother me. It's the way these gatherings always seem to bring out the worst in people, the backhanded compliments, the forced laughter, and in my case the deeply rooted family dynamics that always end with me being the odd one out. I'm 34, unmarried and child-free by choice, a sentence that practically makes me a pariah in my family. My younger sister Becky, on the other hand, is the golden child, the daughter who did everything by the book, college sweetheart turned husband, big white wedding pregnancy announcement posted on social media with a pair of baby booties and a sonogram. Naturally, her baby shower was going to be a big deal. I almost didn't go. I had written and deleted my RSVP email at least 5 times, unsure if I could handle another round of subtle jabs disguised as small talk. But guilt always wins with me. My mom called and left one of her classic voicemails, the kind dripping info concern. Sweetheart, everyone's going to be there. It would really mean a lot to Becky. You don't want to make things awkward, do you? So I went. The shower was held in a private event room at a country-style inn on the outskirts of town. There were flower arrangements at every table, a candy buffet near the windows, and a custom cake shaped like a baby bottle. Becky, glowing and radiant in a peach maternity dress, was holding court like a queen in a fairy tale. And me, I was seated at a corner table next to the gift pile, sipping lukewarm lemonade from a plastic cup. Things were going smoothly in the most artificial way possible until it was time for the icebreaker game. Everyone had to go around and introduce themselves, name how they knew the mother to be, and one fun fact. It was silly but harmless, or at least it was until it was my turn. I said I'm Carole. I'm Becky's sister. Fun fact, I once hiked all of Yosemite alone and lived off canned beans for 5 days. Some polite laughs. A couple surprised expressions. It could have ended there. But then Becky, with that familiar sparkle in her eye, the one she always got when she was about to drop a passive-aggressive bomb, leaned over and said, still single, sweetheart. The room chuckled. I froze. Before I could even respond, Mom chimed in with her saccharine voice. Becky's having her first baby. Isn't that just so wonderful? And just like that, I was reduced to the punchline again. The single sister, the disappointing one. The career woman who must obviously be cold or broken or bitter. I didn't say anything. Just smiled and nodded and stared down at the cupcake on my plate like it held the secrets to inner peace. It had always been like this. For as long as I could remember, I was the one who colored outside the lines. Becky was the daughter Mom could parade around her church friends. I was the one who studied art history, moved to New York, and didn't call home every Sunday. She got the family china set when she got married. I got a polite nod and a check for $500 when I published my first gallery catalog. They never said it out loud, but I knew how they saw me, like I was unfinished. Like I was still waiting to become something proper. Like maybe once I settled down, they'd finally be able to breathe and say, there she is. Now she's normal. So when Becky made that comment, I felt all of it rise in my throat. The years of condescension, the lonely Christmas dinners, the way I was always cropped out of family stories like an inconvenient shadow. But I stayed quiet. I always do. Then it happened. We were midway through opening gifts when a man I had never seen before walked in, holding the hand of a small boy, maybe 4 years old. The room turned to look at them, curious but polite. The man had dark hair, broad shoulders, and a calm presence that made him look out of place among all the pastel chaos. He didn't look nervous. If anything, he looked like someone who had finally found what he was looking for. He scanned the room for a moment before walking confidently toward the center. Then he said in a voice clear enough for everyone to hear, I'm Carole's husband. Time stopped. You could hear a fork drop. Every single head in the room snapped toward me. The whole room froze. Even Becky, whose mouth had been magical just moments before, looked like she had been slapped. My heart jumped into my throat. I blinked once, twice, unsure if I'd heard him correctly. The child tugged on his hand and whispered something. He bent down, smiled, and nodded. Meanwhile, every relative, every childhood friend, every church lady in that room was now staring at me like I had just revealed I was a fugitive on the run. I slowly stood up from my chair. Hi, I said softly. This is Daniel. Maya's voice rang in my ears, reminding me of every time she warned me that this would eventually happen. You can't keep your life separate forever, Carole. One day the truth will show up. And it had. In the middle of Becky's baby shower. Because here's the thing, I do have a husband and a child, just not the way they expected. 2 years ago I married Daniel in a quiet courthouse ceremony. No big wedding, no Facebook post. No family invitations. I didn't tell anyone. Not because I was ashamed, but because I was exhausted. I knew what they'd say. He's divorced. He is a kid. You're okay being someone's second. But Daniel wasn't someone's second. He was mine, my choice, my anchor in a world that always made me feel adrift. And as for his son Max, he calls me Mama Carole and I call him mine. We had built a life. Quiet, joyful, chaotic in the best ways. I didn't tell my family because every time I tried to share anything real about myself, they turned it into a punchline or a problem. So I protected it like a flame in a storm, but now it was out. Daniel had shown up uninvited because he heard what Becky said. He'd been waiting outside in the car just in case. And when he saw me smile through my teeth and swallow my pain again, he decided enough was enough. I looked at him. Thank you, I mouthed. He nodded. And then the whispers began. The whispers came fast, sharp and hungry, like vultures circling over a fresh wound. I could hear fragments of sentences tossed around behind hands and plastic champagne flutes. Carole's husband. When did she get married? Is that her kid? Why didn't she tell anyone? I could feel the heat rising behind my ears, but I stood still. No shrinking. Daniel stepped beside me with Max, whose tiny hand was still wrapped around his dad's pinky like it was the only thing holding him to earth. Becky was the first to break the silence. She slowly stood up from her throne of baby gifts, mouth tight with confusion and something else. Maybe resentment, maybe embarrassment. Either way, it twisted her expression into something unfamiliar. What is going on? She asked, directing her gaze toward me like I had just hijacked our wedding. I took a breath. This is Daniel. He's my husband. We got married a couple years ago. And this, I reached down and rested a hand on Max's shoulder. This is Max. He's my stepson. You could practically feel the shock ripple through the room like thunder. Mom blinked 3 times, then dropped her napkin onto her plate and stood up. I'm sorry. What? You've been married for 2 years. I nodded. Without telling your family? Without inviting us to the wedding? Her voice wasn't loud, but it was sharp enough to cut glass. The fake niceties had fallen off. Now she was offended, not because I had hidden a joyful part of my life, but because I hadn't given her the opportunity to control the narrative. I didn't tell anyone because I wanted it to be ours, I said. Because every time I've tried to share something important, it's been dismissed or laughed at or turned into a joke about me being different. Like when Becky joked about me being single 5 minutes ago. Becky's smile faded. Her eyes darted toward the floor. A few of her friends shifted uncomfortably in their seats. That was just a joke, she said weakly. Was it? I looked her dead in the eye, and for the first time she didn't have a follow-up singer waiting. No quick retort, just silence. You've all spent years acting like my life is incomplete because it doesn't look like yours, I continued. I chose a different path and I'm proud of it. I have a husband who supports me, a child who loves me, and a home filled with peace. I don't need your approval, and I'm done pretending I ever did. There was another silence. Not the awkward kind, the heavy, transformative kind. Like the room was finally adjusting to a new truth. Daniel stepped forward. I know I shouldn't have barged in, he said, his voice calm but firm. But I've watched Carole minimize herself for people who never gave her the space to be whole. I won't let our son grow up thinking that silence is strength. Sometimes standing up for the people you love means doing something uncomfortable. So sorry if this ruined your cake-cutting ceremony, but I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Mom looked completely blindsided. So you think we're the villains here? I gave a tired smile. I think you created a story about who I was supposed to be, and you've never forgiven me for not playing the role. Then to my surprise, someone clapped. It was Aunt Janice, my dad's cousin, who always brought weird coleslaw to family picnics and kept a flask in her purse. She stood up and nodded. About damn time someone said it, she said. Carole, your art show in Brooklyn. Best thing I've seen in years. I still talk about it to my book club. Half this room doesn't know how to define themselves without someone else's approval. But you're living. And it shows. More nods followed. A cousin. One of Becky's college friends. Even the woman from Mom's church group with the 2 tight pearls gave a subtle thumbs up. Becky looked like she wanted to disappear into the diaper cake. Max tugged on my sleeve and whispered, "Can we go home now?" Soon I whispered back. I turned to Mom. "Look. I didn't come here to make a scene. I came because I thought I could stomach it. But I'm not hiding anymore. If you want to be part of my life, it has to be on real terms. That means no more snide remarks, no more judgment, and no more pretending I'm a cautionary tale at your baby shower." She opened her mouth, closed it again, and then sat down, not because she agreed but because she finally understood that I wasn't afraid of her anymore. Daniel and I quietly gathered our things. Max gave a dramatic little wave to the room, completely unaware of the emotional bomb that had just detonated, and then ran ahead to the door. As we stepped outside into the spring air, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: lightness. Not joy exactly, but clarity, strength, relief. Daniel slid his arm around my waist as we walked back to the car. "Are you okay?" I nodded. "Yeah. Better than okay, actually. I think I just introduced myself for the first time." He smiled. Max was already buckled in his booster seat by the time we pulled away from the inn. He started singing a song about dinosaurs and sandwiches, completely unbothered by the emotional landmine we'd just walked through. Later that night, I got a text from Becky. "I don't know if I'm ready to talk, but I'm sorry for what I said and for not knowing you better." I stared at it for a long time before replying, "Thanks." That's a start. I didn't expect her to change overnight. People rarely do. But the door was cracked open, and that was enough for now. As for Mom, she didn't text or call. Not that night. Not the next day. But a week later, a photo frame arrived in the mail. No note. Just a picture of me as a little girl holding a paintbrush, one of the few snapshots of me before Michelle came into the picture and started redecorating the house. I took it as her version of an apology. I placed it on our bookshelf right between Daniel's wedding photo and Max's macaroni dinosaur art. My life isn't traditional. It's not quiet, and it doesn't always make sense to people who only know how to measure success in wedding rings and baby showers. But it's mine, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.